Hey students, welcome to another day in the Foods Lab. Today we're going to be working with a complex carbohydrate food, which basically is your breads. And in particular, we are working with quick breads, which as you previously learned is about a bread that is leavened or raised by either baking soda or baking powder. The recipe that I've chosen to do today is a giant lemon poppy seed muffin. Yum, I'm sure you're really going to like it. Previous to recording this, I've read through the recipe. I've assembled all of my ingredients. They're both to my left and my right. I have gathered all of the equipment that I need. I've washed my hands, and of course now I'm going to go ahead and put on my gloves. And I'm doing this because I'm working with some products right now that if I were to have a bacteria or virus and I were to touch them, they might end up holding on to that virus or bacteria long after I'm gone. Of course, I'm talking about the staple ingredients, the flour, the sugar, etc. On step number one, again, I've gone through and assembled all of these ingredients. On step number one, it talks about preheating the oven to 375. That's happening. You're probably going to hear the little ding go off in a minute. I have also got my large muffin tins. These muffin tins, these large muffin tins are available at grocery stores if you wanted to buy them. But you'll note on your recipe down at the bottom, if you wanted to make these at home, you can always use just a little, or use the regular size muffin tins as well. On down at the bottom, it also said that if you don't have lemon yogurt, you can make your own brew of using the lemon extract to make it as well. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and place this to the side, and I'm going to pull out, first off, my medium-sized mixing bowl right here, my wooden spoon right here, and I'm going to start adding in my dry ingredients. You'll recognize this as a very common mixing method where you combine all of the dry ingredients and then you add the wet ingredients in another bowl, and then you combine them together. I've noticed that on some occasions, as I've glanced out, that some people are not remembering how to measure flour in particular. The flour is always stirred before you measure. You don't scoop. Again, you stir this to fluff it all up, and then you place it inside of your measuring cup. If you were working in a bakery, rather than having to worry about fluffing that all up exactly, they would do this measurement by weight. So I've got 2 cups of flour. That's going to provide the structure for our muffins. The next ingredient is to take and to add some poppy seeds. Poppy seeds come in a spice can. I might or may not have these pre-measured for you, but if I don't, you'll just get your can, you'll open it up, you're going to use this straight edge right here, place that measuring spoon inside. I'm going to just come to the side in case I don't do a very good job, and I'm going to level it off using that straight edge on the pan. The poppy seeds are like a seasoning. They're actually not too much of a flavor as much as they are a texture. The third ingredient that I'm going to add is salt. Please make sure that you're reading through everything accurately and putting things in the right place. The salt I do not measure over here, and I do not do the shaky measuring technique. I'm going to have that slightly overflowing and into a dirty container, or in this case a bowl. I'm just going to level that off. The extra salt that's right here, we can go ahead and toss away. This is a very affordable item, less than 50 cents for one of these, between 35 and 50 cents. And I'll place that to the side. After the salt, I have my baking soda. And baking soda is the leavening agent. Leavening agents make things rise by giving off carbon dioxide gas. This is baking soda. Make sure that you have baking soda, not baking powder. I'm going to use the straight edge. Even though it's a box, it's still straight. I'll get that overflowing, and then I'll just scrape that off gently to get that accurate measurement. At this point, I'm going to take my wooden spoon, and I'm going to be stirring this around, and I'm trying to get this mixed together without mixing it with the wet ingredients. Inside of the flour, there is an incomplete protein called gluten. And gluten becomes strong and elastic when it gets wet. And we don't want it to get too strong. We don't want to have muscle abs on our gluten. So we are just barely mixing it to have just a little bit of muscle when this is combined with our wet ingredients. All right, we're on step number 3, and it says we're going to be working with a large bowl now. Make sure you are noticing which sizes. In this, it says that we're going to cream our sugar and our butter, just those 2 ingredients. The butter needs to be at room temperature. I've gone ahead and got this nice and soft, and I'm plopping that into my bowl, and it's not cooperating. So I've got my flexible spatula that I'm going to use to kind of get that off. You can scrape that wrapper off to get things moving a little bit. And then we're going to add in our sugar. The sugar being a super easy ingredient to measure, we do scoop that, unlike the flour, which we don't, and we'll just level that off. Pop that in there, and then we're all to creaming. There's my oven that says it's hot and ready. So with creaming, you're always going to use your electric mixer. Can you do it by hand? Yes, but it's a crazy workout. I'm placing my beaters inside of it. I'm plugging it in, and then I am getting rid of this flexible spatula for a minute. And then I am obviously not putting it in correctly. Pop that in there, and then I'm going to place this in here before I start it. If you start it up above, you're going to have ingredients flying all over. And now I'm just going to put this on the low speed, and I'm going to mix this. Your instructions tell you that you're going to do this for 2 to 3 minutes. 2 things are happening. The first thing that's happening, of course, is that you're mixing these 2 ingredients together. But I could do that in a matter of 15, 20 seconds. But this creaming process is taking it to a new level. I am not only speeding up, I'm not only going to be mixing the ingredients together, but I'm helping the sugar to break down, and I'm adding air. Air is coming into this, and it's getting stuck in that butter. That's going to help make these muffins that much more light and airy. You're going to feel a difference. At first it was all kind of clunky. Now it's kind of coming all together. Can you see that? If you want to go faster, you can go a little bit faster. When you get this all creamed for 2 or 3 minutes, if you were to have the original side by side, you would see that it's a little bit lighter in color. And it's definitely got a more combined look and feel to it. All right, I think I'm good, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. After I've got this all mixed together, I'm going to be adding in my eggs, and my instructions tell me I'm going to do them 1 at a time. For those of you that have never cracked eggs before, I know there are some of you, hold the egg securely in one hand. Give a nice little wrap, and then if you can, you're going to open that up with one hand. I like to do it one-handed because then I don't have egg white all over me if I'm careful. Go ahead and beat that on in. That all combined. If you can tell, and you probably can, it's not getting everything. That's where that flexible spatula comes back. Scrape the sides and the bottom. I'll scrape off that flexible spatula again. Give it one more go around. Oh, that's pretty. But remember, even though it's pretty and it's probably pretty tasty, it's got raw eggs. Can you remember which bacteria? Did you say salmonella? Well, if you did, you're right. And again, we're going to mix that in. Nice and smooth. Take a second to scrape down the sides. Now, this is mostly the wet ingredients except for the sugar. And we'll scrape that down and get that all nice and clean. One more zap. Nice and smooth. And then we're going to start adding in 2 other liquid ingredients. One of these is this lemon yogurt. This lemon yogurt happens to be 1 full cup. Most yogurt containers are 3/4 of a cup. So I've just looked on this lemon container, and it's told me that it is 8 fluid ounces. There it is right here, 8 ounces. And I know that 8 ounces is 1 cup. I could measure it if I wanted to, but I'm going to trust the makers that they've done it as they've said. I'm going to scrape off this top part right here. Put that in my mixing bowl. I'm going to scrape off all of this out of here again with my flexible spatula, getting that all out. And then with my electric mixer, I'm going to go ahead and put this all together. Now it's starting to smell real good on my end. What am I going to do right here? I'm going to scrape that off. Then I'm going to go ahead and add in my lemon extract. Lemon extract is also found in your spice aisle, and this stuff is potent. All of your extracts are super potent. So like vanilla, it doesn't taste real good in this form. I'm not going to measure over my bowl. I'm going to measure over the side right here, and if I make a mess, it's not going to be inside of my mixture. If you get too much lemon, woo, that's bad. It should be so full that you hardly feel like moving. Pour that in there. Oh, yum smell. Put the lid on this right now. These are fairly expensive. You don't want to accidentally knock it over, so lid on there before you go ahead and add in this next bit. All right, that's coming around, looking good. All right, let's give it one last scrape down with our flexible spatula across the bottom, scraping off that excess off of that flexible spatula. And one more go around. Oh, it's pretty. Oh, it smells delicious. All right, we are now done with our electric mixer. I'm going to unplug it. I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to get a wet washcloth. Imagine this is a wet washcloth. I'm going to wipe this down so it's all clean, including the cord. Then I'm going to wrap the cord around it and put it away. With these mixers, I am going to scrape them clean. And I could use my fingers, but boy, I found out a long time ago that a table knife fits just perfectly in there and will clean everything off. Now I know this smells good. I know it tastes good, but I also know it has raw eggs. And you might say it's worth a stomach ache and some diarrhea for me to lick those. But personally, I think that I'm gonna wait for the final product because I don't want to deal with any food poisoning, especially in this time in our world, okay? So this is now your creamed mixture. It's mostly wet. The only dry ingredient I put in there was sugar. Do not put your sugar in with your dry ingredients. It goes in with the butter and the other wet ingredients. The next steps in number 7 says that you're going to take your wooden spoon and you're going to put this in here. Get in a full bowl so you can see how important it is to get the right bowls. And we're going to start stirring this. Notice at first it's a little bit, you go, is that even going to come together? The answer is yes. And we're combining this by stirring it. This is folding in where I'm kind of going across around the bottom and flipping over, trying to get that wet to absorb the dry. You do not use your electric mixer here because this will overwork the gluten, that incomplete protein found in the endosperm of that wheat. And with that, I will just have to be patient as I combine the two, and I'm working that gluten just a little bit. All right, we're starting to get there. And your instructions tell you just until it's moistened. You'll hear that all the time. That means over stirring can make your product turn bad. In this case, what will happen, instead of your muffins being slightly rounded, they'll be peaked. And inside, when you break it up, there'll be like these air holes, like tunnels where worms have gone through. Not that there would be, but that's kind of what it looks like. Everything's combined. So now we're gonna go ahead and pull out that muffin tins. And I'm gonna take 2 spoons at this point, and I am gonna remove my gloves. Everything's gonna be cooked right now, and I just feel a little bit more secure with this part right here. So I'm gonna scrape off, and again, everything's baked, so this is gonna kill off anything that might otherwise be troublesome to me. And when I do this, I want these all to be the same size. If I have one big and one small, the big one will be doughy in the middle if the small one is perfect. And vice versa, if the big one is really perfectly cooked, the small one will be overcooked. So we're looking at things to be the same. So that's why I'm gonna take my, I've got one little spot right here where I saw flour. I'm gonna take my spoon and I'm gonna fill it full, and I'm gonna use, this is my large serving spoon, and I'm just gonna put, can I call it a dollop? It's kind of a big dollop. Dollop's about 2 tablespoons worth. I'm gonna try to get it right in the center. I don't want to have it on my muffin tin, mostly because then I'd have to wash it off. And it does discolor, especially this one. Maybe you can look and see, it looks like maybe some of it's been discolored. I'm filling these 2/3 to halfway full. If it's much more than that, these guys can overflow and then you got a mess all over the bottom of your oven. Pop that in there. Now I've got kind of leftovers, so I'm gonna find the ones that look a little bit smaller. Can you see I wasn't perfect on every one? I'm trying to be. This one maybe right here gets a little bit. Just trying to make them all about the same size. Scrape that right on off and get that in there. And last little bit, scrape it all the way out, pop it in. I'm thinking this one's the winner. All right, again, this is gonna taste delicious, but don't be tempted. Don't be tempted. And we're ready to put this in the oven. Now students, when you put this in the oven, you'll recognize that your oven is wider than it is deep. This pan is wider now than it is deep. When I put it in, I want to have equal distance around all of the sides. And my instructions tell me that I'm going to cook it for 23 to 25 minutes. What should I set the timer on? Did you say 23 minutes because you can always cook it longer? If you did, put a star on your forehead. We'll check them at 23 minutes. Now, since we'll be done with this recording, let me just show you what you would do. At 23 minutes, I have two options. I like this first option, which is I look at them, and if I can see they look doughy, they're not done. These will be a very pale, not caramel colored, a very pale color. I could take my finger and touch them, and if I touch it and my indentation remains with my finger, it's not done. If I touch it and it springs back, it's done. Second way is to take and to use a toothpick, as your instructions say, and you're going to insert it into the very thick center part and pull it out. If there is batter on it, like that right there, you're going to cook it a minute longer, and a minute longer, and a minute longer, till it doesn't come out with any batter on it. If it comes out clean, you stick it in, you pull it out, they are done, and it's good. So that, my dear friends, is how you make giant lemon poppy seed muffins. Focusing in on mixing the dry ingredients separate from the wet ingredients. This is the muffin method of mixing. Of creaming, which is always the solid fat like butter, and sugar like white sugar, simple carbohydrate, you remember that. Creaming them and then adding them together. And then finally, how do you test them to make sure they're done? Again, touch or toothpick. And that, my friends, giant lemon poppy seed muffins. Yum, yum.